This video is going to be a delight for fans of archaeology. No matter how much we dig or where we do the digging, it seems we are never going to stop finding amazing artifacts from long-gone civilizations and cultures. They're like buried treasures left behind by our ancestors for us to find and marvel at. There are active archaeological dig sites all over the world being worked on at this very moment. And here are some of the most incredible treasures they've given up recently. Finding human bones is like Christmas for an archaeologist, but for a small child, it must be horrendous. We hope that none of the children who started finding bones in their playground in Bordeaux, France in 2006 were too traumatized by what they found, because it's proven to be a priceless discovery. When the remains were first investigated in the year of their discovery, they were found to come from the Bell Baker culture, who were at their most active during the early Bronze Age. That was exciting enough, but a more recent and more extensive investigation of the site has revealed that the practice of burying human remains there went on for a lot longer. The earliest remains recovered from the site are from around 3600 BCE, but the most recent is from approximately 1250 BCE, well into the Iron Age. Strangely, although the site is close to the rivers of Garonne and Dordogne, and only a few short miles from the Atlantic Ocean, isotope analysis has shown that the people buried here didn't eat any fish or seafood. The mound is barely 2 feet deep and isn't near any major landmarks. So why it was used as a grave for thousands of years is unknown. The mystery of the Jaguar God Cave in Mexico's Chichen Itza is one that attracts a lot of conspiracy theories. Farmers discovered the site by accident in 1966, but the first archaeologist to investigate it, Victor Segovia Pinto, ordered for it to be sealed up with rocks and boulders after he'd completed his initial investigations. The cave stayed off limits for half a century before experts were finally allowed to return in 2013. Inside the cave is a whole collection of immaculately preserved ancient Mayan artifacts, including several sculptures of Balam Ku, the Mayan jaguar god for whom the cave is named. Accompanying the sculptures are priceless decorative plates, incense holders, grinding stones, and other items from the same era, but nothing that would explain why Pinto wanted to make sure nobody else could go in there after he'd seen all he wanted to see. Did he take something from the site? Was there something else in there that the authorities didn't want the world to know about? Sadly, it seems we'll never find out. The sands of Egypt are still hiding many tombs from the country's ancient days of empire, and not all of them are worth reporting when they're discovered. This one, found in Saqqara in late 2018, however, definitely is. It's approximately 4,400 years old, and as far as experts can tell, it's never been broken into, robbed, or otherwise interfered with since the day it was sealed until now. Because of that, the bright colors on the walls of the tomb, which is said to belong to a well-respected priest by the name of Waiti, haven't faded over the years, and in many places are still in pristine condition. Finding a tomb in condition this good is extremely rare, and Egyptologists say that this is the single best example for at least 3 decades. The hieroglyphs above the entrance to the tomb indicate that Waiti was closely connected to King Neferkare, who ruled during the 5th dynasty of the Old Kingdom. Among his many duties, he was the royal purification priest and the inspector of a sacred boat. The tomb, which is 20 feet below the sand, is divided into 5 separate shafts. They're being opened slowly and carefully, one at a time. One of them will presumably contain the sarcophagus of Waiti himself. A few years ago, the local authorities of Karnataka, India, decided to lower the water levels of a reservoir in the area. They weren't sure what they'd find as the water ebbed away, but it's fair to say that they could never have imagined a scene that may as well have come straight from the science fiction franchise Stargate. Anyone who's familiar with Stargate will recognize that the 10 precision-cut circles in this rock formation look like the dial home device, but the site predates Stargate by hundreds of years. Known as Saharalsling, this has now become a focal point of activity for curious archaeologists, The strange circles aren't the only strange finding there. There are also several carvings and markings on the rocks nearby. But sadly, hundreds of years of water running over the rock has weathered them so badly that it's impossible to decipher their meaning. We can't even make a good guess at how the circular depressions were made. Normally, we would suggest that fairly advanced rock-cutting technology would be required. But given how long the rock has been underwater for, that ought to be impossible. We always knew that some of the people of ancient Greece lived in wealth and opulence, but only recently have we found out that some of them had so much money that they chose gold-leaf tombs as their final resting places. Only 2 gold-leaf tombs have been discovered so far. They're in Pylos, and they're approximately 3,500 years old. The occupants of the tombs were buried with thousands of valuable objects, ranging from jewelry to weapons. They may even be connected to the mysterious Griffin warrior, who was discovered not far from Pylos in 2015. Whoever these people were, we've never found anyone else in Greece who was afforded this kind of lavish treatment as part of their burial rites. The fact that the domes that once covered the tombs collapsed hundreds of years ago may have helped them to remain unknown until now. Had the tombs been easy to find, they would probably have been robbed. Just as strange as the treasures and the gold leaf is the presence of 16 pointed star designs on some of the jewelry. The symbol was used a lot in Greece 2,500 years ago, but until now, we had no record of it being used 1,000 years prior to that. The evolution of our species is still shrouded in mystery, and experts are unable to say for sure how long some of our sister species survived alongside Homo sapiens. Thanks to a discovery made in late 2019, we now know that one of them, Homo erectus, lasted for a lot longer than we previously thought. The first Homo erectus lived 2 million years ago, and as far as we know, they were the first humanoid species to walk on 2 legs. Now, new dating evidence has shown that there were still Homo erectus in Java, Indonesia 100,000 years ago. That means that Homo sapiens and Homo erectus were alive on the planet at the same time. The Homo erectus remains that have been tested and dated were first discovered during the 1930s. But fresh analysis of both the bones and the site they were discovered in, led by the University of Iowa, has shown that they're far more recent than anyone imagined. It also means that the species survived for more than 1 million years. Instead of being a chain in the link of evolution, they may have been an altogether different branch. The enormous palace built by Emperor Nero in Rome 2,000 years ago is hardly a secret. Everybody knows it's there, and it goes by the name of the Domus Aurea, which translates into English as Golden House. Somehow, though, in all these years, nobody noticed a secret chamber underneath the palace until restoration works revealed it by accident in 2019. Now known as the Sphinx Room, the chamber is decorated with dozens of paintings of animals, some real and some mythical. Centaurs are picked out in shades of red and ochre, accompanied by Pan, the goat-legged god, and humans playing instruments to make the centaurs dance. For some reason, there's also a warrior with a shield and sword trying to fight off a panther. The name of the room comes from the one lone depiction of a sphinx, the chamber's largest mural, dominating all around it. Nero was hated during his own lifetime, and his palace was deliberately partially destroyed, buried under dirt, and built over after his reign came to an end by way of a violent revolution. Perhaps that's why this hitherto unknown chamber was so hard to find. Tragically, the occupation of parts of Syria and Iraq by ISIS has led to the destruction and loss of countless priceless historical buildings and artifacts. Now that ISIS has been driven from the land, archaeologists are working on recovering whatever they can from the devastation. In the process, they're occasionally coming across something brand new. As an example, here are a series of ancient Assyrian rock carvings that have come to light in northern Iraq, appearing to show gods and supernatural beings riding mythical beasts. The carvings are around 2,000 years old and were found toward the end of 2019 in Fida, just south of Duhok and around 300 miles from the capital city of Baghdad. Although carvings like this have been found before, the last set to bear any similarities was discovered 200 years ago, making this a rare and welcome find. The carvings have been made in the bedrock of what was once a canal and take the form of reliefs. It's now hoped that further inscriptions and carvings might be found below the dirt and soil left by the canal, and so the site could reveal even more in the years to come. One of the most remarkable discoveries made thus far in 2020 is this monument in Peru, which has been waiting for someone to come and find it for more than 2,000 years. The sprawling structure, covered all over with mystical swirls, concentric circles, and terrifying teeth and fangs, has been hidden by jungle in the country's north and is in an area that's difficult to access by foot. That inaccessibility has been key to it keeping its secrets for so long. 3D scanning of the carvings have revealed details that are difficult to see with the human eye and suggest that the fangs are associated with a mysterious feathery feline figure that the people who lived in this area once worshipped as a god. Puzzlingly, the rock is sedimentary and isn't native to the area, and so the 1-ton block must have been dragged here from somewhere else. Given that it's 10 feet wide, 5 feet thick, 2 feet tall, and so heavy, that wouldn't have been an easy task. This must have been a very sacred place to those who worshipped the feathery god. But as they had no form of writing, it's hard to decipher the finer points of the carvings. In late 2018, a farmer on the Greek island of Crete had a truly bizarre experience. He was driving in his car and went to park it beneath an olive tree, but the ground below him began to sink when he turned off the engine. He briefly feared for his life, but he'd actually made an astonishing discovery. Right beneath the place he'd chosen to park his car was a long-forgotten 3,400-year-old Minoan tomb, and he'd found it totally by accident. The farmer poked his head into the hole in front of his car, saw pottery, and immediately called in the experts from the local heritage ministry. They verified his finding: an 8-foot-deep, 4-foot-wide tomb, including 2 coffins, a bowl, and 14 amphorae. The style of the coffin immediately marked it out as dating back to the Bronze Age. A stone wall had kept it secret for all these years, but a recent pipe leak in the area had softened the ground, and the weight of the car was all it took to crack the tomb open. It's not exactly how Lara Croft would go about her tomb raiding, but it worked. Here's another brand new discovery from January 2020, a primitive form of sauna in Mexico City that's around 700 years old. It would be more accurate to call this structure, which would have been used by ancient Native Americans, either a steam bath or a sweat lodge. The people of the era referred to them as temazcals and used them for a variety of purposes. Doctors brought the sick here in an attempt to heal them, and there's also some evidence that women came here to give birth. The steam bath is in a historic area of Mexico City known as La Merced and is thought to have been part of Temazcaltitlan, a district of Tenochtitlan, the early Mesoamerican metropolis that would eventually go on to become the Mexico City we know today. Also at the site are the remains of a grand house that was built during the 16th century, and a tannery that opened on the site 100 years after that. The entire area is a tower of cultural and historical layers into which the more you dig, the more you find. Not so long ago, archaeologists were reasonably sure that they could roughly identify the time in which people first arrived in the Americas. Now they're not so sure. Discoveries keep popping up and poking holes in the established historical narratives, and this late 2019 discovery at Cooper's Ferry, Idaho, has poked a bigger hole than most. An ongoing dig at the site has uncovered tools used in butchering animals and carving stone, and radiocarbon dating suggests that they're between 15 and 16,000 years old. Previously, it was thought that the Clovis stone tools previously found in America were the starting point of human civilization there, but they only go back 13,000 years. We are now going to have to accept that there were humans at Cooper's Ferry 2,000 years before that, and start looking for more evidence of who they were and how they lived. It raises the distinct possibility that the earliest American settlers came across the sea, perhaps from Japan, where tools very similar in style and dating from around the same time have been discovered in the past. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, and you will be the first to know when a new video comes out. Thank you for watching, and see you soon!